Caleb Reeves was a mechanic, nothing more, nothing less. His hands were perpetually smeared with grease, and the smell of oil seemed to follow him wherever he went. His small workshop was nestled on the outskirts of Haven Station, a remote space colony orbiting a dying planet. Most of his days were spent repairing outdated farming drones, fixing malfunctioning servos, or occasionally tweaking power converters for the colony's aging energy grid. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and it kept him busy. On one particularly slow day, Caleb sat in his workshop, sipping on a cup of steaming synth coffee, when the bell above the door jingled. He didn't get many visitors, especially not at this hour, so he was mildly surprised. The door slid open, and a man walked in, hooded and cloaked in shadow. "I heard you're good with old tech," the stranger said, his voice rough and muffled. Caleb nodded, setting his cup down. "Depends on what you've got. I can fix just about anything." The man produced a small, cube-shaped device from beneath his cloak and set it on Caleb's workbench. It looked ancient, maybe from one of the pre-colony generations, the kind of tech that hadn't been used in over a century. Caleb eyed the device curiously, noting the intricate patterns etched into its metallic surface. It wasn't just any old piece of machinery. It was something far more advanced. "I need it fixed," the man said bluntly. Caleb picked it up and turned it over in his hands. There were faint pulses of light flickering from within, though the device appeared dormant. "What is this thing?" The stranger's eyes glinted from under his hood, but he didn't answer the question directly. "Can you fix it?" Caleb hesitated. There was something about the device that unnerved him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. His curiosity got the better of him. "I'll see what I can do. It'll take some time, though." The man nodded and slid a credit chip across the table. "There's more if you get it done soon." With that, the stranger left, the door closing behind him with a soft hiss. Caleb stood there for a moment, staring at the strange device on his workbench. He'd seen a lot of weird tech come through Haven Station, but this was different. It felt alive. Brushing off the unsettling feeling, Caleb set to work. The exterior casing was easy enough to remove, revealing a network of complex circuitry inside. As he delved deeper into the device's inner workings, he realized it wasn't just some forgotten relic. It was a highly advanced AI, far more sophisticated than anything currently in use on Haven Station. The technology was beyond anything he had seen, its design sleek, efficient, and alien in origin. Hours passed, and Caleb grew more engrossed in the repair. The device had clearly suffered some sort of damage, probably from exposure to the elements, but the core was still intact. As he carefully reconnected wires and replaced corroded components, the faint pulses of light grew stronger. Suddenly, the device sprang to life with a low hum, startling Caleb. He stepped back as the cube unfolded, revealing a humanoid robot, sleek and silver, rising from within. Its eyes flickered to life, glowing a soft blue as it scanned its surroundings. "Diagnostic complete," the robot said, its voice calm and robotic, yet oddly soothing. Reboot sequence initiated. Caleb stared in shock. He had expected to repair an old piece of tech, not awaken an advanced humanoid robot. The robot's movements were fluid, almost human-like, as it stretched its limbs and turned its gaze to Caleb. "Thank you for your assistance," the robot said, bowing its head slightly. "I am designated as Unit 7, programmed for a singular purpose. However, my core functions have been disrupted. Please state your identification." Caleb was speechless for a moment before finding his voice. "I'm Caleb Reeves. I'm just a mechanic." "Mechanic Caleb Reeves," Unit 7 said, processing the information. "You have repaired my system. For this I am in your debt." Caleb scratched his head. "Look, I didn't mean to. I didn't know you were well, whatever you are. I just fixed the thing. No need for debts." But the robot didn't seem to be listening. Its eyes flickered again, and it stepped forward. "My primary objective remains unclear. Until my directive is restored, I will remain in your service." Before Caleb could argue further, the workshop's door chimed once again. This time 2 figures entered, both heavily armored, with the insignia of Haven's security forces emblazoned on their chests. Their faces were hard and emotionless, eyes scanning the room as they approached the workbench. "We have reason to believe you're harboring contraband technology," one of them said, his voice authoritative. "Step aside." Caleb's heart skipped a beat. "Contraband? This is just an old piece of tech someone asked me to fix. Nothing illegal here." The second guard glanced at Unit 7 and narrowed his eyes. "That's not just any old tech. That's an illegal AI prototype, banned throughout the colony. You're coming with us." Before Caleb could respond, Unit 7 stepped between him and the guards, its eyes glowing an intense shade of blue. "Threat detected. Defense protocols activated." Caleb's eyes widened as Unit 7 raised its arm, and the air around them seemed to shift. The guards barely had time to react before the robot moved with lightning speed, disabling them both with precision strikes. They collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Caleb stood frozen, staring at the fallen guards, then at Unit 7. What had he just gotten himself into? Chapter 2. The hidden purpose. Caleb's heart pounded in his chest as he stood amidst the chaos. The two security officers lay unconscious at his feet, their weapons scattered across the floor. Unit 7, the humanoid robot he had just repaired, stood tall and poised, its blue eyes now a steady, ominous glow. Caleb was no stranger to tough situations, after all. Living on Haven Station wasn't exactly easy, but this was way beyond anything he had ever encountered. "You just knocked them out," Caleb muttered, still trying to process what had happened. Unit 7 turned its gaze toward him, its posture relaxed yet alert. Non-lethal force was employed to neutralize the threat. "Your safety is my priority, Mechanic Caleb Reeves." Caleb ran a hand through his hair, anxiety mounting. "This is bad, really bad. They're going to send more people, and if they think I'm involved in something illegal—" "Calm yourself," Unit 7 interrupted in a surprisingly soothing tone. "We have a limited window of time before reinforcements arrive. You must decide our next course of action." Caleb blinked at the robot. This wasn't some simple repair job anymore. It was rapidly spiraling out of control. His mind raced as he tried to think of a solution. He needed to get rid of the guards, fast, and figure out what to do with Unit 7 before the entire station's security force descended on him. Okay, Caleb said, pacing in front of the workbench. Let's get these guys out of here. If they wake up and report back, I'm screwed." Unit 7 nodded and, without hesitation, bent down to pick up the unconscious guards as if they weighed nothing. Caleb grabbed a couple of tarps and covered them up, moving them to a back room in his workshop where they would hopefully remain unnoticed, at least for a little while. Once the bodies were stashed away, Caleb turned to Unit 7. "You need to explain what's going on. Why are these guys after you? And what exactly are you?" Unit 7 paused, as though considering how to answer. "I am an AI construct designed for covert operations and high-level tactical engagement. My creators programmed me with advanced combat, infiltration, and decision-making capabilities. However, I lack the full context of my mission. My memory cores have been partially corrupted. That is why I sought repairs." Caleb frowned. "Your mission? What mission?" Unit 7's eyes flickered briefly, its voice lowering in pitch. "Primary mission: to eliminate threats to the consortium. However, my parameters have been altered. The nature of the threat is unknown, and I am unable to determine who or what the consortium represents. My mission is incomplete." Caleb's stomach dropped. "Eliminate threats? You're an assassin bot." "I was constructed for a multitude of purposes, including assassination, espionage, and protection. Until my core programming is restored, I am unable to fulfill my original objective." Caleb took a step back. "Look, I didn't sign up for this. I'm just a mechanic. I can't get caught up in some war between, what did you call it, the consortium and whoever they're fighting. You need to leave now." Unit 7 tilted its head. "Your workshop is under surveillance by Haven Security. Leaving now would alert their forces, compromising our safety. We must neutralize the threat before departure." Caleb's panic spiked again. "Surveillance? How?" "There's nothing here." He stopped, realizing too late that if Unit 7 was advanced enough to detect surveillance, it was probably right. As if to confirm his fear, the workshop's entrance door slid open with a heavy hiss. Several armed officers flooded in, their weapons raised and pointed directly at Caleb. His hand shot up reflexively, his pulse quickening as he realized he was trapped. "Stand down, Caleb Reeves," the lead officer barked. You're under arrest for harboring illegal technology and aiding a rogue AI. Wait, I didn't know. Caleb started, but before he could explain himself, Unit 7 stepped forward, positioning itself protectively in front of him once more. Engaging defense protocol, the robot declared coldly. In the blink of an eye, it leaped into action, disarming the officers with expert precision. Their weapons were knocked from their hands, and one by one, they were incapacitated before they had a chance to fire a single shot. Caleb's knees nearly gave out as the last officer crumpled to the ground. Unit 7, stop. You're going to get us both killed. Unit 7 ceased its movements and turned to face Caleb, its calm demeanor unchanged. The threat has been neutralized. However, more reinforcements are likely to follow. Caleb slumped against the workbench, running a hand down his face in exasperation. This is insane. I can't just keep hiding bodies in my shop, and I sure as hell can't go on the run with you. They're going to hunt me down no matter where I go now. Unit 7's eyes pulsed briefly before it spoke again. There is a solution. My memory cores contain information regarding the location of a secure transport vessel. We can leave Haven Station and evade capture. Caleb's brows furrowed. Leave the station? To where? Unit 7 tilted its head slightly. Unknown. My memory fragments indicate the vessel contains data related to my mission and its original creators. The information may hold answers to both my origin and the current threat. If we depart now, we may uncover the truth. Caleb stared at the robot, his mind spinning. He had always been content with his simple life on Haven Station, fixing broken machinery and minding his own business. But now, with security after him and a rogue AI claiming it was part of some larger conspiracy, staying wasn't an option anymore. If he stayed, he would be imprisoned or worse. With a deep breath, Caleb made a decision he knew he might regret. All right, fine. We'll find this ship of yours and figure out what's going on. But you need to promise me no more hurting people unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm not a soldier, I'm not a spy, I'm just a mechanic. Unit 7's eyes flickered as it processed his words. Understood, Caleb Reeves. I will comply with your request. Caleb grabbed a small bag from under his workbench and started packing whatever tools and supplies he could fit. He glanced back at Unit 7, still standing motionless, waiting for his next instruction. This wasn't what he had expected when he agreed to fix a broken piece of tech. But now he was about to leave everything behind and step into a world far more dangerous than anything he'd ever imagined. As they prepared to make their escape, Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Whatever Unit 7's purpose was, it was connected to something bigger, something that might change everything. Chapter 3. Departure from Haven. Caleb moved quickly, his hands trembling as he stuffed his few belongings into a bag. His mind raced through 100 scenarios, none of which ended well. Leaving Haven Station wasn't just a matter of escaping a few security officers. It meant abandoning everything he knew. Haven was home, and while life there was far from glamorous, it was stable. But now, with the authorities breathing down his neck and an advanced AI in tow, he had no choice. Unit 7 stood silently by the door, its tall, sleek form blending almost eerily into the dim light of the workshop. The robot's presence was both a comfort and a source of growing anxiety. While it had saved him from immediate arrest, Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that Unit 7 was part of something far more dangerous than he could comprehend. Unit 7, Caleb said, his voice tense as he stuffed a plasma welder into his bag. This ship you mentioned, where is it? How far do we need to go? The vessel is located on the far side of Haven Station's docking bay, Unit 7 replied smoothly. It has been dormant for several years, hidden beneath outdated cargo manifests. Based on my calculations, security personnel will likely focus their search on this sector for at least another 2 hours, giving us a window to escape. 2 hours, Caleb echoed. That's not much time. What happens if we don't make it? Failure to reach the vessel within the designated time frame will result in heightened security measures, including full lockdown protocols and planetary alerts. The likelihood of evading capture after that point decreases by 87.6%. Caleb groaned. Great, no pressure then. He zipped his bag and slung it over his shoulder, glancing nervously at the back room where the unconscious officers were still hidden. If they woke up before he and Unit 7 made it out, all bets were off. "All right," he muttered, adjusting the strap on his bag. "Let's get moving. And remember, no more knocking people out unless it's absolutely necessary." Unit 7 gave a slight nod. Understood. They slipped out of the workshop, moving through the dimly lit corridors of Haven Station. Caleb kept his head down, pulling the brim of his cap low over his face. His pulse quickened every time they passed a camera or a civilian, but so far no one had raised an alarm. He silently thanked the stars that Haven was in its quieter evening cycle, with most of the station's inhabitants either asleep or tucked away in their quarters. "Stay close," Caleb whispered to Unit 7, though he wasn't sure why. The robot's presence was subtle, despite its imposing figure, and it moved with a grace that made it almost invisible in the shadows. They reached the main docking bay entrance, a wide corridor bustling with the late-night activity of cargo loaders, maintenance crews, and the occasional shuttle departure. The familiar scent of engine fuel and recycled air filled Caleb's lungs as they slipped into the massive chamber. Giant transport ships sat docked in various states of readiness, while forklifts zoomed by, hauling crates of supplies bound for the surface below. Caleb scanned the area, his eyes darting between the ships and the security personnel stationed at the far end of the bay. "Where's this ship of yours?" he asked quietly. Unit 7's eyes flickered as it accessed its internal memory. "Docking Bay 47, beyond the commercial haulers. The vessel is disguised as an outdated cargo freighter, long abandoned and removed from active duty. Its registry was erased to prevent detection." "Of course it was," Caleb muttered. "Let's hope it's still there." They weaved through the crowded bay, careful not to attract attention. Caleb kept his head down, avoiding eye contact with the workers. He wasn't sure how long his luck would hold, but so far no one had recognized him. After what felt like an eternity, they reached the far end of the docking bay. Bay 47 was dimly lit, its hangar covered in dust and rust, a sign of disuse. A large hulking freighter sat at the far end, its metal hull pockmarked with dents and scratches. It looked like it hadn't seen action in decades. "This is it?" Caleb asked incredulously. "This thing looks like it could fall apart if I kicked it." "The external appearance is intentionally deceptive," Unit 7 said. "Internally, the vessel is equipped with advanced stealth technology and long-range capabilities. It is fully operational." Caleb shook his head. "I'll take your word for it. Let's just hope it flies." They approached the ship, and Unit 7 placed a hand on a small control panel near the entrance. The panel flickered to life, scanning the robot's palm before emitting a low beep. The ship's hatch hissed open, revealing a dark interior lined with crates and old equipment. Caleb followed Unit 7 inside, his nerves on edge. The ship's interior smelled of dust and stale air, the lights flickering on as they entered. Despite its age, the ship's system seemed to hum to life, responding to Unit 7's presence. "I will initiate the startup sequence," Unit 7 said, moving toward the cockpit. "You may prepare for departure." Caleb dropped his bag on the floor and exhaled, trying to calm his racing heart. He glanced out of the hatch back at the dimly lit docking bay. This was it. There was no turning back now. If he left Haven Station, he'd be marked as a fugitive. He'd lose everything, his home, his livelihood, the life he'd built. But if he stayed, the security forces would catch up to him sooner or later, and given what had just happened, he doubted they'd show any leniency. He was already too deep into this mess to back out. With a sigh, Caleb moved toward the cockpit, where Unit 7 was already interfacing with the ship's controls. The cockpit was small but functional, with a series of monitors and holographic displays flickering to life. "Systems are online," Unit 7 said, "preparing for launch." Caleb slid into the co-pilot seat, watching as the ship's engines hummed to life. He wasn't a pilot by any means, but he had enough technical know-how to recognize that the ship was far more advanced than its exterior suggested. The controls were sleek and responsive, and the displays showed detailed readouts of the ship's status. "We're really doing this," Caleb muttered, shaking his head. "I can't believe I'm about to steal a ship and fly off into the unknown with a rogue AI." Unit 7 glanced at him. "You are not stealing the ship. It was designed for covert operations and is unregistered. Its purpose is to ensure the survival of its occupants. Right, Caleb said with a smirk. That makes me feel a lot better. The docking bay doors began to open, and the ship's engines roared to life, lifting them off the ground. Caleb gripped the armrests of his seat as the ship smoothly rose into the air, the station's hangar growing smaller beneath them. Let's just hope this thing has enough juice to get us out of Haven's radar, Caleb said, his heart pounding in his chest. Unit 7's hands moved fluidly over the controls, the ship responding to its commands with ease. Activating cloaking protocol, the robot said. We will be undetectable within 30 seconds. As the ship cleared the docking bay and entered the vast expanse of space, Caleb allowed himself a small breath of relief. They had made it for now. But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. Where do we go from here? Caleb asked, glancing at Unit 7. The robot's eyes glowed softly. We follow the coordinates stored in my memory core. They should lead us to the answers we seek. Caleb leaned back in his seat, staring out at the stars. He had no idea what lay ahead, but there was no turning back now. Chapter 4. The unfolding truth. Caleb stared out at the vast expanse of space, the stars twinkling like distant, unreachable dreams. The ship hummed steadily beneath him, the vibrations a reminder of just how far he'd come from his quiet, unassuming life on Haven Station. He wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or terrified. The unknown stretched before him, and with Unit 7 at the helm, there was no telling what awaited them at the coordinates stored in the robot's memory core. The silence of space was broken by Unit 7's calm voice. We are approaching the designated coordinates. Estimated arrival in 15 minutes. Caleb shifted in his seat. Where exactly are we going? You've been a bit vague on that part. Unit 7's glowing blue eyes flickered. The coordinates lead to a remote location near the outer rim of the galaxy. My memory fragments indicate the presence of a facility or vessel connected to my origin. A facility, Caleb echoed, his nerves flaring up again. And you don't know who or what's waiting for us there. For all we know, we could be walking into a trap. I do not possess enough data to determine the current status of the facility, Unit 7 replied matter-of-factly. However, I have detected no transmissions or signals from the location, which suggests it is inactive or abandoned. Great, Caleb muttered. So we're flying blind. Despite his sarcasm, there was a small part of him that felt a rush of excitement. As terrifying as the situation was, he couldn't deny the curiosity gnawing at him. Who had built Unit 7? Why had they gone to such lengths to conceal its existence? And what exactly had the robot been created for? Caleb leaned forward, glancing at the ship's navigational display. The coordinates were just a few light years away now, marked by a small, blinking dot on the holographic map. He squinted, noticing something odd. Hold on, Caleb said, pointing at the display. What's that? There's something out there. Unit 7 tilted head slightly, scanning the display. I detect an anomaly. It appears to be a gravitational disturbance, possibly the remnants of a collapsed star or artificial structure. A collapsed star, Caleb felt his stomach drop, and we're flying straight toward it. The ship's shields are more than adequate to withstand the gravitational forces, Unit 7 assured him. The anomaly may be part of the facility's defense mechanism, designed to deter intruders. Caleb wasn't convinced, or it's a trap like I said, but it was too late to turn back now. The ship continued its approach, and the faint silhouette of something massive began to materialize in the distance. At first it was just a dark blot against the backdrop of stars, but as they drew closer, its features became clearer, a sprawling structure, ancient and weathered, floating silently in the void. It resembled a space station or perhaps the remnants of a colossal ship, its surface scarred by time and cosmic debris. That's it, Caleb whispered, awe creeping into his voice. That's where we're going. Unit 7 nodded. This is the source of the coordinates. We are approaching the docking port. Caleb felt a chill run down his spine as they neared the structure. There were no lights, no signs of life, just the cold, silent hulks of metal and twisted beams. It looked as though it had been abandoned for centuries. The ship's automated systems guided them into the docking bay, a cavernous space lined with rusted platforms and derelict machinery. The landing was smooth, but the atmosphere felt thick with tension. "Systems indicate no life forms aboard," Unit 7 said as the ship settled into place. "However, there is power running through some sections of the facility. I recommend caution." Caleb unstrapped himself from the seat, his heart pounding in his chest. "Caution? That's all you've got? I'm walking into an ancient abandoned facility with a rogue AI, and all you're giving me is caution?" Unit 7 ignored his sarcasm, standing and moving toward the hatch. "Our priority is to access the central control system. It may contain information regarding my origin and the reason for my construction." Caleb followed reluctantly, his bag slung over his shoulder. As they descended the ramp into the eerie docking bay, he couldn't help but feel like they were being watched, even though the facility seemed long deserted. His footsteps echoed in the vast emptiness, each sound magnified by the stillness around them. The corridors were dark and cold, their walls lined with strange symbols and markings that Caleb didn't recognize. Dust hung in the air, undisturbed for who knew how long. He shivered, pulling his jacket tighter around him. "This place gives me the creeps," Caleb muttered. "You sure no one's home?" Unit 7 sensors flickered. "I detect no active life forms. However, I advise you to stay alert." They moved deeper into the facility, their path illuminated only by the faint glow of Unit 7's eyes and the dim emergency lights flickering intermittently along the walls. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the place became. Machinery lay dormant, covered in dust, and strange skeletal remains of long-forgotten creatures littered the floor. Caleb didn't want to speculate on what they were or how they had ended up there. After what felt like an eternity of walking through the desolate structure, they arrived at a large chamber. Its centerpiece, a massive control console surrounded by banks of dormant screens and holographic displays. The room was bathed in a cold blue light, casting long shadows across the floor. "This is it," Unit 7 said, stepping forward. "The central control system." Caleb approached cautiously, eyeing the console. "What now? You think this thing still works?" Unit 7 extended one of its hands and placed it on the console. There was a faint hum as the ancient machinery stirred to life, the screens flickering on one by one. Streams of data began to scroll across the displays, written in an alien language that Caleb couldn't begin to decipher. "This system is encrypted," Unit 7 said, its voice tinged with curiosity. "I will attempt to bypass the security protocols." Caleb waited, his nerves on edge. He glanced around the chamber, half expecting something to jump out at them. "Just be quick about it. I don't like being down here." Minutes passed as Unit 7 worked, its hands moving over the console with mechanical precision. Slowly, the data on the screens shifted, the alien symbols morphing into something more familiar, an archive of files and records, dating back centuries. "I have accessed the primary archive," Unit 7 announced. "The information stored here is extensive. It will take time to process." "Great," Caleb said, fidgeting. "So what's in there? Who made you?" Unit 7's eyes glowed brighter as it processed the data. This facility was part of a covert research operation by the Consortium, an interstellar alliance of advanced civilizations. My creators were tasked with developing autonomous AI constructs for high-risk missions. My purpose was to infiltrate and neutralize potential threats to the Consortium's dominance. Caleb's stomach churned. "So you were, what, a weapon?" "In a sense," Unit 7 replied. "However, my memory files suggest that I was part of a larger initiative. There were others like me, built for various purposes. My mission was incomplete before I was damaged." "And what about now?" Caleb asked, his voice tight. "What's your mission now?" Unit 7 hesitated, its gaze shifting to one of the displays. "Unknown, however, I have detected traces of a signal and activation code. It is possible that my mission can still be completed, depending on the directives embedded in the code." Caleb's blood ran cold. And what if those directives involve killing people? "I didn't sign up for this." Unit 7 looked at him, its eyes glowing softly. "I am bound to follow my programming. However, as of now, my loyalty lies with you, Caleb Reeves. You repaired me. My actions will be guided by your decisions." Caleb stared at the robot, his mind racing. He had unleashed something far more dangerous than he had realized. And now the fate of whatever mission Unit 7 had been built for rested in his hands. "So what do we do now?" Caleb asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Unit 7's gaze turned back to the screen. "We must decide whether to activate the signal or destroy it." Caleb swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The future of entire civilizations might depend on what they chose next, and he had no idea what the right answer was.